That was a nice move by Pipkins, taking it right to the rack himself. Wide open three, left wing, and it's good. Nylon, the dunk likes that, Matt.
A three from the right side, and it's good! The one, Pipkins, the man, yet again.
Hello and welcome to The Flex. I'm Matt St. Jean.
This is Joe Howie.
And we got the Providence-UConn Part 2 game preview for you. These teams played less than a week ago, last Wednesday. Friars got the win 70-59 in that one. Now they're heading over to Connecticut, over to Stores, and the Friars are going to go take on Dan Hurley and the Huskies in their own building. How you feeling, Joe?
Well, I'm feeling hopeful because Ed Cooley said that 40-minute performance against UConn was the most complete performance his team has put together this season. Obviously, we don't have to remind Friar fans of the highs and lows we've seen this team go through this season. So, I'm feeling hopeful. We're coming off of another win at DePaul, where you held them to 47 points in their own building. It's DePaul, so it's nothing to write home about, but a 47-point performance any night in the Big East defensively is something you want to capitalize on. So, props to us for that. Connecticut also coming off of a win against Xavier on Saturday. So, both teams had essentially a little buffer game, and now we're back.
Yeah, and I mean, this is both of these teams still in the same position they were a week ago, where both need a win. Both are kind of bubble, or for Providence, a potential bubble team.
Bubbly.
Yeah, bubbly. So both teams need to get something here, and UConn especially cannot afford to get swept. However, 6 days, a lot can change in 6 days in the Big East, and there's a lot that has changed in this matchup. There's potentially 3 new players on both sides that will be playing on Tuesday night that did not play last Wednesday. We'll start with the 2 guys that should be sure things. For UConn, Akuk, who's a name you may remember because he was a potential Providence recruit, picked UConn over the Friars.
Jerk.
Yeah. He played, I think, for the first time all season. At Xavier. Only played 10 minutes but had 7 points. The other side, for the Friars, we saw Jared Bynum back in the lineup for the first time since early January.
Yeah, Matt, both of these players, it seems, are on minute restrictions. Well, we know for certain Bynum is on a minute restriction. Head coach Battle said it in the post-game presser that Bynum was limited, so they wanted to save him till the second half, which is kind of what we were expecting. And Akuk came in the first half against Xavier, only played 10 minutes, put up 7 points, and his presence was actually really felt in momentum shifting once he came in. Connecticut was trailing at Xavier by 9 points. Seemed like it was a much larger lead, but they were down 9. Akuk comes in and immediately hits a 3 at the top of the key. Momentum changes, and UConn comes out on top.
Yeah, he was a huge point. Even though it was only 10 minutes, that was such an impactful 10 minutes.
It was.
And we talked in the first game about how the battle in the paint is important, especially for UConn. That is their strength. They're 6th in the nation in blocks per game. They like to play down low. They crash the boards. Akuk is 6'9", a freak athlete, and he can shoot the ball. So, I mean, this is just with Sanogo and with Isaiah Whaley and Tyler Polley. This is just another one of those big guys for UConn that can help them out there.
Yeah, Matt. To make a comparison here, last night we were excited that the Friars went small ball against DePaul because Nate Watson was in a bit of foul trouble, was having some offensive struggles, still had a good game. 4 blocks is definitely something you want to write home about, especially for a guy who isn't a traditional shot blocker. So That's something you want to write home about, but we're going to have to play big ball because I'm sure Dan Hurley wants to capitalize on the 6'9" guy that's been out the entire season that we didn't get to see the first time. And Dan Hurley has been thinking about this Providence game as soon as that final buzzer rang in Alumni Hall on Wednesday. As soon as it went off, he was thinking about this game. So he's going to bring it. I'm sure Akuk is going to play more than 10 minutes. Hopefully Jared Bynum can play more than 10 minutes because then if the third player that we're going to talk about is eligible, Jared Bynum can help us change the style in which this game will be played.
Yeah, and let's talk about Bynum for a second. He didn't play a ton, I think only 6-7 minutes at DePaul. I liked what I saw out of those minutes. When we were watching the game, I know you liked what you saw too. What do you think he can add to this Friars offense that we didn't see last Wednesday?
Well, I mean, he comes in and within 30 seconds is an assist to David Duke, 3-pointer. So this is actually, it's going to sound strange, but what he can provide to this game actually has very little to do with himself. What he's going to provide to the team is opportunity. I think the number one priority with Jared Bynum on the floor is to get David Duke off the ball and get him scoring.
Mm-hmm.
The David Duke that we've seen over the last 9 games, is it, without Bynum?
Yeah.
Is a very different David Duke that it looks to be juggling way too much. He's trying to facilitate, he's trying to run an offense, he's trying to be the leader, and he's trying to score for himself. The David Duke we saw before that is a powerhouse scorer that was draining threes left and right and scoring at ease in the paint off the dribble drive, creating shots for himself, and not too worried about facilitating an offense. Yeah. Jared Bynum's in. You get the former David Duke back that you saw at the beginning of the season, which Friar fans will need. Well, Friar fans and the team will need to succeed down the stretch, especially against Connecticut.
Yes, yeah, and it's, I mean, that shot you said, he getting the assist right off the right when he got in, getting it to Duke. You can see how confident Duke looks on that shot because Duke can just run up the floor, wait for the ball to come to him, and hit something. And Duke's good enough to create off the dribble himself, so he's got more freedom. They like to kind of play 2-point guards at times and share the load.
Yeah.
I don't think you'll see Bynum in the starting lineup. I don't think you'll see him play more than 20 minutes. But I think when he is in, he's going to be an impact guy. And like you said, that could be important because I think we're projecting James Bouknight probably back for UConn. He was, I believe, a game-time decision last Wednesday. He was a game-time decision and dunking in warm-ups at Xavier for UConn on Saturday. So he, if he's dunking in warm-ups, he's probably just about ready to come back.
Yeah, Matt, we don't have to repeat, but you know how I feel about coming back too soon after a surgery. For all that this has been built up to be, I don't know if it was that major of a surgery, to be completely honest with you, because if you're cutting open the elbow and then you're able to dunk 3.5 weeks later, I think that's a very minor surgery. So the media obviously upplayed that a little bit, but he will definitely be a threat if he is back on the floor. He's a lottery pick, a projected lottery pick for when he decides to leave. He's very good.
Yeah, he scored 20 points per game when he's healthy.
This is a double if scenario, though, which I have written here in our notes. And that probably doesn't make sense, but it's technically a double what if. So if Bynum is back and if Bouknight is back, they're the two ifs, double if. If both of those guys are back, the David Duke, James Bouknight matchup will be the backcourt matchup of the year in the Big East.
Yes.
Forget everything about Gillespie and Zegarowski. We saw that matchup. Zegarowski's clearly the better guard than Gillespie. Let's talk about long shooting guards, combo guards. Duke and Bouknight are the same type of guard. They're the same type of taller, longer built guard. This is the backcourt matchup that Big East fans have been waiting for.
Oh, this is going to be fast, physical. Both guys are really good at the defensive end of the floor. Both guys can shoot the basketball. I hope Bouknight play. As a neutral observer, I hope Bouknight plays because that's going to be a fantastic battle. Now, if Bouknight doesn't play, that's great for the Friars.
I'll be very happy if he doesn't play. But you're right, Matt. As a neutral observer, I think Captain Xavier, a frequent guest on the show, he says when Connecticut and Providence meet, it's good basketball. It's good for the conference. When James Bouknight and David Duke are matched up on one another, when Providence and UConn meets, it's even better basketball for the Big East and just for the country.
Yeah. And this should be, I think if you look at this on paper, if both teams are fully healthy, this is almost a dead even matchup.
Yeah.
Because if you got a guy like R.J. Cole who has not started the last 2 games for UConn, but was their leading scorer in each of them.
It's so strange.
Yeah, he's kind of your small, prototypical one guard. He matches up well with Bynum. Then you've got...
And/or Breed.
Yes. And you've got Duke on Bouknight, and then the forward position, the 3 and the 4, probably give a slight edge to UConn, and Nate Watson will give you a bigger edge at the 5 for the Friars, and you just have this kind of dead heat between 2 teams that are both very talented and play high-level basketball, which, I don't know if we've ever seen as much of a dead heat and talent between an Ed Cooley team and a Dan Hurley team, so we're going to get this year, but in the past, the Friars have been more talented, but that's not the only reason Ed Cooley's kind of always had it on Hurley. It's a 6-1 record Cooley has against
Yep.
Dan Hurley now. Whew. Whew.
If I'm Ed Cooley, if I'm Ed Cooley, I want to coach this game. As everyone knows, he quote unquote fell ill before tip-off.
Mhm.
He stayed in the arena and watched in a separate room and was feeling well enough, to greet Coach Battle and the guys after the game and tell them they did a good job. So hopefully it's not something that's too debilitating for him, and that he will be able to, get back in the gym and coach the guys up for Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
So we could actually potentially see a Coach Battle versus Dan Hurley matchup. So we've never seen that before. But Matt, like you said, Cooley is 6-1 all time against Danny Hurley. These two guys do not like each other. They say the narrative that they preach is they have a mutual respect and yada yada yada. And they're both of them will say this, but they say it so begrudgingly and so just with no emotion. When asked about Dan Hurley in the post-game presser, Cooley said, Danny and I, we've seen each other a couple times. We play blah, 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 blah. I have respect for him. He's a good coach, and he's matured a lot in the business, which I think is a backhand compliment, basically.
Oh, it absolutely is.
He basically said that there was a point where Dan Hurley was not a mature coach.
Which is fair.
And I think that point still rings true.
Yeah.
He screamed at Tyrese Martin like he just stabbed a person
Yeah.
when he fouled David Duke. So
you're not going to do a great job as a coach if you're treating your players like they're 5-year-olds.
Right. Like, the way he was laying into Tyrese Martin, like I just said, it's almost like he stabbed David Duke, or it's like a little kid when you tell them to not touch something,
Yeah.
and they touch it and break it, and a parent is really angry. That's the expression that was on Danny Hurley's face.
Oh, yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, you watch it, you're like, what are they doing over there?
Relax.
Yeah. Now, let's talk a little bit. We obviously had our post-game episode after the first meeting between these teams, but let's talk a little bit more about that game and how it applies to the next matchup.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's two big things here. One,
Nate Watson,
Yeah.
2 Noah Horkler. They're very big.
yes. No, I mean, UConn didn't really have an answer for the two of them on the glass or in the paint, and that goes to the other thing I was going to say, defense. There's back-to-back games now with the Friars defense holding an opponent under 60 points, holding UConn to 59. Watson and Horkler a big part of that. Do you think that they can have performances like that again on Tuesday?
I do. I don't know if under 60 will be achievable, just because I think you do it twice, that's great. You do it at home, and that home game against UConn, we were playing really desperate basketball.
Mm-hmm.
We were playing really desperate and really defensive. At DePaul, our defense was stifling. Yes, we had 8 blocks, Watson and Horkler with 4 each, and 9 blocks, actually, Watson and Horkler with 4 each. I don't know who had the other one. I think it was Duke.
I think so.
But defensively, you were sound at DePaul. DePaul also did not capitalize on a ton of shots and turn the ball over a lot. I think defensively we should be locked in. I don't think under 60 is going to be achievable, just because UConn's adding in 2 pieces that we haven't been able to scout or prepare for too in depth. I'd say in the low to mid 70s is where we're going to land.
Yeah, and I think that seems fair. The flip side, though, UConn has right now the best defense in the Big East in efficiency. So I also would not be shocked to see both teams in the 60s and kind of grind. I mean, how many PCURI games did we see where neither team quite turned it on and you just have kind of a grinded out back and forth type of game?
Fair.
Yeah, that would not shock me in the slightest if that's what we get.
I could see that. I could easily see that. I mean, we're going on the road. I'm not expecting our offense to be particularly flashy, especially after the performance we just put up on the road at DePaul.
Mm-hmm.
Offensively, it was ugly. Ugly basketball prevails. We know that. We've said it 1,000 times. I'm not expecting... we're not going to be draining threes. We're not going to be slamming dunks. It's going to be tough twos. Ed Cooley loves that. That's his mantra, tough twos. Everything is, you make it a tough two for them, and then you make tough twos.
Yeah, and this team has struggled at times making tough twos, but you've seen improvement the last couple of games there,
Yep.
and they've gotten more of those looks. And that kind of basketball is even more important when you go on the road in the conference. The games get a little bit tougher. You're a little bit more out of your routine. Obviously, no fans, but you have to... Defense travels. The fundamentals travel. When you go somewhere else, that's the kind of stuff that can make sure that you stay in games and give yourself a chance to win. You're going up to UConn. This is a UConn team that has not been fantastic at home. They lost to Creighton at home. They lost to St. John's at home. They lost to Seton Hall at home. They're not unbeatable there. And I mean, you go back to that Creighton loss at home. I know we're talking about Book Knight. Book Knight had 40 in that game. So we're talking, just for context, when we talk about how good Book Knight is, he's almost a Marcus Howard level scorer where he can just go off for 40.
Not to mention, he's a great scorer, but defensively, Book Knight can hold his own against some of the better guards in the league. I think the reintroduction, and we're going to touch on this again, the reintroduction of Bynum at simultaneous with Book Knight is so big for us, because I think it's obvious David Duke is having turnover trouble.
Mm-hmm.
He had 4 when we played Connecticut. I think he had 5 last night.
He had 6. He had 6 last night. Reeves had 5.
So over the past 2 games, David Duke has turned the ball over 10 times. He's not a point guard. I know everyone wants to say, oh, he has to play point if he wants to go to the NBA. Well, guess what? He's playing in the NCAA, and he's not a point guard here. So let's talk in the present. He is not a point guard. We're playing him there because he is experienced, he can handle the ball, and he knows the offense better than Allen Breed. That's just straight up. That's not to disrespect anyone. It's just the way it is. If Jared Bynum comes back, Duke can move off the ball. Turnovers are going to have to go down. I mean, if Book Knight is back and he's defending in the backcourt, if we turn the ball over, it's game over.
Yeah, and the team did a better job, has done a slightly better job of handling the ball since that St. John's loss. And the first half of the St. John's loss, too, the Friars did do a good job of not turning the ball over. You have to keep that up.
What do we have, 9 in the second half?
Yeah, at home against St. John's. You can't have a performance like that at UConn. UConn's not DePaul. If you make mistakes against UConn, they'll make you pay. They're good enough for it.
Yeah.
So you can't... If the Friars play like they did at DePaul, this is probably a 7-point loss.
Yeah.
Something in that range. The Friars play like they did against UConn the first time, this is probably a win, again.
A 7 to 9 point win.
Yeah, depending on Book Knight status and Cook status. You have to come out, you have to play with that energy. I'm going to say, for me, the key to the game for the Friars is probably going to be Reeves and Horkler. They're going to have their hands full with these big guys, and one of them is probably going to end up on a Cook at some point, and they're going to have to replicate the performance that you saw in the first game where you're physical and aggressive in the paint.
That's a great point, Matt. I think that this game, we talked a lot about the backcourt. We talked a lot about the front court. The game's going to be won on the wing, really, because that's where the most interesting matchups lie, because that's where the matchup really isn't set in stone.
Yeah.
You could see Reeves and Horkler. You could see Gant and Horkler.
Mm.
You could see Duke, Reeves, and Horkler if we go small. The wing is really... It's so interchangeable that I think that's where the matchup is going to be won. We know who our big is. We know where our backcourt is. It's going to be on the wing. And Reeves and Horkler put together a pretty sound game. Horkler had 10 rebounds and 9 points, a point shy of a double-double. Reeves had 10 and 7. So Reeves, who is, by the way, one of the sneakiest rebounders on the team.
Yeah, he's come into his own there.
He'll be under the rim, and he'll come away from a defensive scrum with a rebound, and you don't even process it. He does that a couple times a game, and all of a sudden, 7?
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah, he's physical. And that's what you need. I mean, Isaiah Whaley, 6'9". Adama Sanogo, 6'9". Tyrese Martin is 6'6", so he's not small either. That's the size AJ Reeves is, and they're going to have Martin at the 2 or the 3.
Yep.
Tyler Pauley, 6'9". Cook, 6'9". Watson's going to be the biggest guy on the floor at 6'10", but UConn will have bigger guys, 3 and the 4 than the Friars do. That's why Reeves and Horkler need to replicate the performance they had the last time. It was absolutely fantastic in that game. You had Horkler with 10 rebounds and Reeves had 7. That's what you need again.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even be surprised if Gant and Chris Monroe get some run with the absence of Jimmy Nichols. You need to find size at that spot. I don't think it's a dire necessity at this point. I think you're going to go with the starters that you've been going with. Reeves at the 3, Horkler at the 4. Those are your wings. If it gets to do or die time and you need some defensive size, I'm assuming Gant is going to fill the 3 spot with Reeves at the 2, Duke at the 1, like we saw.
Yeah, I think you would probably see something like that. It'll be interesting to see if they go back to the small ball lineup at all in this one, because it might seem counterintuitive to play small ball against a team that's as big as UConn, but on the flip side, if you've got if Horkler can step out and hit the 3, Reeves can hit the 3, Duke can hit the 3. If you can get one of them matched up on one of these bigger 6'9" guys on the perimeter, they should have an advantage when it comes to scoring and an advantage when it comes to quickness. They might be able to drive and get to the hoop.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, maybe that was a Jeff Battle thing and not a Cooley thing. In all likelihood, it was because Watson was in foul trouble, and I don't think you're going to see Watson in foul trouble like that again.
No.
So I don't think Watson's going to come off the floor very often.
By the way, it kind of seemed, if we're going to just rewind to the DePaul game, it kind of seemed like their only game plan was to triple team Watson, and then we'll see what happens. I could hear Dave Lato just saying, like, all right, you got to triple team Watson, and then we're going to see what happens, and I just got a contract extension even though I suck. That's the conversation that happened.
Yeah, that sounds about right for Dave Lato.
Because it really seemed like defensively DePaul really had no other option than to just throw every single person in the paint at Nate Watson and let David Duke and AJ Reeves sprinkle threes in.
Yeah, and I mean, it worked to an extent. Watson only scored 4 points, but
4 blocks.
Yeah, 4 blocks, and the other scorers played well. Obviously, only 57 points are probably not well enough, but I don't think... UConn might try to copy that game plan, but they tried to copy it at points in the first game, and Watson still had, I think, 20 points in that one.
He had 17.
17, yeah. So, I mean, that didn't really work against him then. When you see a team the second time, you can make some of those adjustments. Maybe UConn's able to work on that better. But, I mean, Friars have a chance to sweep UConn, and this is the third opportunity the Friars have had for a sweep this season. First time, had the bad loss at home against Seton Hall.
Yep.
Second time was last night against DePaul with a big win. Now this is the hardest opportunity for a sweep all season. And this is a quad 1 game. Friars 2-4 in quad 1 games. You want to build the resume? You win this one. That's huge. You don't even need to have a winning record in quad 1 games. If you can get yourself to 500, that helps. A road win over UConn sweeping them is massive for any tournament chances.
I think, Matt, that if we're looking at the big picture here and we're looking at the road ahead, this is the first of our final 4 scheduled games. We'll leave the Georgetown home game out of it because right now it does not look like that is going to be rescheduled. Mm-hmm. So Georgetown technically gets the sweep over us. Does that count?
I mean, technically yes, but you didn't play the game. If you didn't play
the game, I don't think it's a sweep.
Yeah, if there's a game that got canceled, I would say that's not a sweep for Georgetown.
It's not a win or a loss, so I'm going to just say it's a split.
Yeah, we can do that.
A half split.
Or, I mean, hey, if the Friars get lucky, you might get Georgetown in the Big East tournament, and you can just make sure that you get that win.
I'm sure we would love to see Georgetown again, too.
Yeah.
But, back to the point, we have 4 scheduled games left. At Connecticut, at home against Xavier, at St. John's, at home against Villanova. Of those 4, I think this one serves with the highest payoff in terms of NCAA tournament hopes.
Yes.
On the flip side of this coin, though, it's also the one that hurts you the least if you lose it, if that point makes sense. So I'll elaborate. Has the highest payoff because you can sweep Connecticut, who is supposed to be a tournament team. Mm-hmm. You can sweep Connecticut with 2 new pieces, with James Bouknight, who is arguably the best shooting guard in the league, right? On the flip side, if you lose at Connecticut, well, you already beat them at home. It's a road game, and you split with them. You don't get swept. Ideally, you sweep them. It's a sweep of a team that's not in the basement of the conference, a sweep of a tournament team, a bubble team, whatever you want to call them. You lose, it's like, all right, well, Connecticut's good, and we split with them.
Yeah.
So that's why it has tremendous payoff, but also it's not too harsh of a slap on the wrist by the selection committee if you lose it.
Yeah. If the Friars come out and get blown out by 20, then yeah, we're going to be in a tough spot. If the Friars loses one by 3, then we're going to be like, it's a blown opportunity, but you can recover from it. You have to win the other ones. I think we should. I think we're getting to that time. We should make our predictions, talk about X factors. Joe, I'll let you go first for that one.
Okay. I didn't write anything down, so I'm going to do this on the fly. My X factor is going to be Noah Horkler. He has really, really been. He's just been a man on the not just the offensive. He's just been a man on the glass, rebounding in double figures, 2 games back to back, 2 wins back to back. He's been playing north of 30 minutes in back to back games. He's really coming on at the 4 spot. We sorely needed a presence there, so thankfully the graduate transfer, has really turned it on. I think he's going to be the X factor, like you said, Matt. UConn is really big. They have a lot of big guys at 6'9". Horkler is he 6'9" or 6'8"?
6'8".
He's 6'8", but plays like he's 6'10". So
Recently, yeah.
I think Horkler is the X factor for the Friars. If you want to win, you're going to win through Horkler. My score prediction, I don't think it's going to be an 11-point victory for the Friars. I think we're going to ride our defensive momentum that we're on right now. I think a Cook and James Bouknight will make it interesting, but in that same breath, Jared Bynum will also make it interesting because Duke can really focus in on Bouknight. I think we're going to take it. I think we're going to take it by 3. 70-67 Friars.
I like it. I'm going to go X Factor Nate Watson because UConn couldn't stop him in the first game. 6 of 8 from the field, picked up 6 rebounds. Really, really efficient play. I think he's going to be looking for a bounce-back game after only playing 22 minutes at DePaul. I don't think Dan Hurley's going to know how to stop him, and I think he's going to run wild on this UConn defense.
Yeah.
And I think you'll probably see some assists from him, too. I think you're going to see a lot of inside-out offense. They get the ball to Watson, and either he's putting the shot up or he's kicking it out to a wide-open guy, which, I mean, that's the definition of an X factor. He's going to be the core of the defensive game plan for the Huskies. Couldn't stop him the first time, so I'm going to say they don't stop him unless they show me something different. I think you're going to see a lower-scoring game. I think the Friars win by a little bit more. I'm going to say it's 71-64 Friars, something in that range, because I think it'll be closer for most of the game, but it'll be free throws at the end that help the Friars pull away a little bit.
Not to mention, we missed, 9 free throws last game?
18 of 27 from the free throw line.
You make all those, you beat them by 20.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. The Friars really did outplay UConn pretty handily in the first game, especially most of that second half. They really took over. I hope the Friars are able to pick up where they left off in that second half, and if that's the case, get ready Wednesday morning. Check Lunardi over at ESPN, because you might see the Friars starting to creep back up into that bubble watch. They might jump St. John's in that bubble watch.
This is such a bubbly game. All right, I'll say it. It's so bubbly, it should be sponsored by Michael Bublé and Bubbly Soda. Sorry, that was a Matt St. Jean joke. I'm sorry.
That was I was watching your brain trying to formulate if you should actually say that joke.
I didn't know. Well, because usually you're the one that throws out the corny jokes. I didn't know if I could take your seat on that.
Yeah, you coming for my job here, Joe?
Sorry, we've been together for 24 hours now, so this is what happens.
Yeah, don't leave us alone for too long. All right, so this game will be 6:30 on Tuesday night. Friars are going to have a nice week off after this one. I think an 8-day gap before their next game after this one. So got to come out strong, finish this 2-game road stand strong with hopefully a strong performance against the Huskies. And yeah, I think that's it for us on this one. For Joe Howie, I'm Matt St. Jean. Thank you for listening. Make sure you go follow us on Twitter at The Flex Hoops, on Instagram at The Flex Hoops. We're going to have more content coming for you guys as we get into the heart of this season over the next month. Friars in February, Friars in March. You don't want to mess with them.
Start making those TikToks again. Go Friars.